The cargo station floated near the edge of the galaxy. Far from any big planet or busy trade route, it was quiet, cold, and mostly forgotten. That's why Cal liked it. He worked alone, checking cargo crates and fixing old systems. No bosses. Shouting, no crowds, just silence and machines. That night, Cal walked through Storage Bay 6 with his toolkit in hand. The lights were dim, flickering from time to time. The air smelled of metal and dust. It was supposed to be empty. No deliveries, no movement. Nothing scheduled until next week, but then he heard it. A small voice, barely a whisper, floated through. The silence, I can't breathe. Cal froze. He looked around, but saw no one. He thought maybe it was a pipe hissing, or maybe he was just tired. But then the whisper came again, softer now and full of pain. Help. Please. Cal's heart pounded. He dropped his toolkit and followed the sound. Rows and rows of crates surrounded him, stacked high like walls. He moved carefully, his boots echoing with each step. Finally, in the far corner of the bay, under an old tarp, something moved. He stepped closer, pulling the tarp away with both hands. Under it was a metal crate sealed, dented and marked for disposal. It had no air vents, no lights. Nothing to show it was important, but something inside the crate shifted again. And a weak cough escaped from the small gap at the corner. Without thinking, Cal ripped the old lock open with a crowbar. The crate popped open with a hiss, letting out stale hot air. Inside, curled up in a tight ball, was a figure, not human. The being was small and thin, wrapped in a tattered blanket, blue skin, glowing faintly, covered in dirt and bruises, hair like silver threads sticking to her face. She blinked slowly, her lips barely moving. I can't breathe. Cal knelt down beside her, shocked. Hey, I'm here, he whispered. It's okay now. You're safe. She coughed again, eyes fluttering, her body trembling. Her fingers reached out weakly, touching Cal's chest like she was checking if he was real. Her breathing was shallow, almost fading. Cal looked around and yelled into his metacolergent response to Bay 6. Life form found, barely breathing. But there was no answer. Just static, stupid station AI, he muttered. And then lifted the girl carefully into his arms. She was light, far too light. Like she hadn't eaten in days as he carried her. Out of the bay, she clutched his jacket and whispered one more time. Please, don't let them find me. His blood turned cold. Who was them? Cal moved fast, heading to the med bay, his boots slipping slightly on the old metal floor. The station lights flickered again, as if something was interfering with the power. He didn't care. His only focus was the fragile life in his arms. Once in the med bay, he placed her on the exam table and turned on the diagnostic scanner. The AI's voice came online, cold and calm. Unknown biological life form detected. Warning, life signs critical. Administering oxygen. A soft hiss filled the room as a mask lowered over her face. Color slowly returned to her cheeks, but her eyes stayed closed. Cal stared at the screen, and what he saw made no sense. No ID, no species match. No records in the galactic database. It was like she didn't exist. How did you end up here? He whispered to the unconscious girl. Who put you in that crate? There was no answer, of course, just the soft sound of machines and her slow, shallow breathing. Cal sat beside her, watching over her like a silent guard. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but one thing was clear: someone had tried to hide her. Someone had left her to die in the dark, and now, by opening that crate, he had just stepped into something much bigger than himself. He didn't know it yet, but that soft whisper in the storage bay had just changed everything. Asterisk, the med bay was quiet, filled only with the gentle hum of machines and the faint beeping of the scanner. Cal sat in the corner, eyes fixed on the sleeping girl. Her breathing was steadier now, thanks to the oxygen mask, but her body was still weak. Bones sharp under her pale blue skin, she looked more like a shadow than a person. Whoever she was, she had clearly been through something terrible. Cal leaned forward and whispered, "You're safe now." "Whoever you are." She stirred, just a little, her silver hair falling to one side. Cal tapped the console and checked her vitals again. "Still weak," the AI said. "But stable," he sighed, rubbing his eyes. None of this made sense. No records, no shipping logs, and a sealed crate that wasn't even listed on the manifest. The storage bay didn't even have any scheduled deliveries for 2 weeks. He looked through the logs again, nothing. No timestamps, no scans, not even security footage. Like she just appeared there by magic. But Cal wasn't a man who believed in magic. He believed in wires, panels, systems that worked or didn't. This was something else. He stood and walked. Back to the bed, the girl twitched under the sheet, her lips moving, cold, dark. "Help." He reached out and gently placed a blanket over her shoulders. "It's okay," he said. "You're out of the box." Suddenly, her eyes opened, glowing. Faintly like moons, she gasped and tried to sit up, her breathing quick and panicked. "No, no, no." "They'll find me, please, hey," Cal said quickly, holding her shoulders. "It's okay. No one's coming. You're safe here." Her eyes scanned the room, wild with fear. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice dry and shaky. "Station E94, Cal replied. "I found you locked in a crate in storage bay 6. She blinked slowly, trying to remember. Then she whispered, "Are you human?" Cal nodded. "Yeah, I'm Cal, station engineer." Her breath slowed a little, but her body was still tense. "You didn't work for them?" she asked. "Them?" Cal raised an eyebrow. "Who's them?" She didn't answer, just looked away and hugged the blanket close. Her hands were shaking. Cal didn't push. He knew that look, someone who had seen too much. He had seen it once in a refugee child, back when the war ended. It wasn't something you forget. "Can I ask your name?" He tried gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Rilla." "Nice to meet you, Rilla," he said softly. "You hungry?" She nodded, slow and nervous, like she wasn't sure if food was allowed. Cal went to the wall dispenser and ordered something. Soft warm broth, a nutrient bar, and a flask of clean water. He handed the tray to her and stepped back, giving her space. She took the flask first, sipping it like it was a rare gift. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks as she drank. Cal didn't say a word, just let her eat in peace. After a while, he sat down beside her again. "I tried to look you up in the system," he said. "But there's no record." "There won't be," she whispered. "They erased us." That sentence hung in the air like a storm cloud. Cal leaned in, confused and cautious. "Who erased you?" She didn't answer, just shook her head instead. She rolled up the sleeve of her arm and pointed to something under her skin. It was small, metallic, and pulsing with a soft red light. The scanner had missed it earlier, hidden under her biological readings. "What is that?" Cal asked, alarmed. "A tracker," she said. "And a cage." Before he could say anything else, the lights flickered. Then the console beeped. "Intrusion detected, security override requested." Cal jumped up, scanning the controls. Someone was trying to access the med bay from outside the station network. But how? Rilla's eyes widened. "They found me," she whispered, voice trembling. "Impossible," Cal muttered. "This place is off-grid." She pulled the blanket closer. "They always find us." Cal disabled the medbay's external access manually, typing in a master code. "Not this time," he said. "I've got you covered," but deep inside, he knew it was already too late. Someone had sent her here, locked in a crate like garbage, and someone else was watching. Rilla sat on the edge of the medbed, holding the warm blanket around her shoulders. Her hands trembled as she stared at the glowing red spot under her skin. Cal stood nearby, trying to keep his voice calm. "We need to figure out what that thing is," he said softly, "before it brings trouble." The AI scanner hovered closer, blinking blue as it analyzed the object. After a few seconds, it spoke. "Foreign tech detected. Unidentified origin, partially organic, signal emission." Active. Cal's eyes narrowed. "It's still transmitting." "Confirmed," the AI replied, weak but continuous. Rila's shoulders dropped. "I told you. They'll come." Cal didn't know who they were, but he didn't like how scared she looked. He moved to the wall terminal and opened the comms menu. Still jammed, still no outside contact. It wasn't a malfunction, someone was blocking signals. "From this station, you said they erased your people," Cal said carefully. "What did you mean by that?" Rila pulled the blanket tighter, staring down at her thin legs. "My world used to shine," she whispered. "Our cities floated in the skies. Our minds were open, connected." Cal sat beside her, quiet, letting her speak. "They came in ships. Not to trade, not to learn, but to take," she said, voice shaking. "They called it research. But it was control. They wanted our gifts, our knowledge. So they turned us into tools." She touched the glowing node on her arm gently. "As if it burned, they put these inside us, locked our minds, turned our thoughts into data for their machines." Cal clenched his fists. "And then what?" "They said we were unstable, dangerous," she continued. "So they erased the records, wiped our names from the archives, scattered survivors across the stars in cages." "Like the crate I found you in," Cal whispered. Rila nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I was supposed to die quietly, lost in deep space." Cal stood up and began pacing. He felt fire boiling inside him. He had seen bad things during his time in the inner colony, smuggling, black market implants, even weapon testing. But this, hiding a living being in a box like trash, was worse than anything he'd imagined. "We need to get that thing out of you," Cal said, pointing to the node. Rila shook her head. "If you remove it the wrong way, it'll send a spike signal louder than anything. They'll find us in seconds." Cal rubbed his chin. "Thinking fast. I might know a way to shut it down. Not remove it, but mask the signal. Can you do that?" she asked, eyes wide with hope and fear. "Maybe," he said, "but I'll need time, and we'll need to stay hidden." Suddenly, the AI chimed again. "Motion detected, storage bay for access logged, unauthorized user." Cal's blood ran cold. "Who the hell is on my station?" he growled. Rila slid off the bed, standing on shaky legs. "They're here," she whispered. "They always come in pairs. Cold, quiet, with empty eyes." "Not today," Cal muttered, grabbing a toolkit and grabbing a toolkit and a small sidearm from the cabinet. "Stay behind me. And if I say, run, you run." "Understood." She nodded silently. They moved through the quiet hallway, lights flickering again. The metal walls echoed every step, every breath. Cal led the way toward the back tunnels, avoiding the main corridor where the intruders might be. As they moved, Rila pointed at the wall. "There, behind the panel," she whispered. "It connects to the ventilation shaft." Cal pried it open with a screwdriver, revealing a narrow passage. "You've ever crawled through air ducts before?" he asked. She gave him a weak smile. "I grew up hiding." She climbed in first, and Cal followed, pulling the panel shut behind him. The shaft was dark and tight, filled with dust and old wires, but it led them safely above the station's central control room. Peering through a small grate, Cal saw them, two tall figures in black suits, helmets hiding their faces. They weren't soldiers, no markings, no words, just silent hunters. One held a scanner device that beeped every few seconds. The other carried something worse, a stun lance set to full. "They're scanning for life signs." Cal whispered, Your tracker's still talking. Rilla closed her eyes, focused, and placed her hand over the node. Her fingers glowed faintly, her lips moving without sound. Suddenly, the scanner below stopped beeping. The man holding it tapped it in confusion, then shook his head. You masked it, Cal said, in awe. She opened her eyes, breathing hard. Only for a little while. Cal knew what had to be done. They couldn't hide forever. He would need to destroy the tracker system from the inside, but that meant going into the AI core, the most dangerous and secured part of the station. He looked at her and whispered, "If we're doing this, we do it together." She nodded, her voice steady for the first time. "I'm not going back in the box." Asterisk. The ventilation shaft opened quietly behind a maintenance panel near the backup server room. Cal and Rilla slipped out, coughing as the dust clung to their clothes. She was pale and shaking, but her eyes stayed sharp. There was no more time to hide. They had to act before the men in black found them again. "This way," Cal whispered, leading her down a narrow corridor. They passed rows of humming consoles and flickering monitors. Only the low sound of the AI system followed them. A voice that had grown more hesitant in the last hour. Rilla looked around, nervous. "Why are there no cameras here?" she asked. Cal stopped and frowned. "There used to be," he said. "Every hallway, every corner." He tapped into a wall panel and pulled up the camera feed. Every single log from the last 2 days, deleted. Every camera file empty, not corrupted, not damaged, just gone. His jaw clenched. "This is being wiped in real time." Rilla's voice trembled. "They're covering their tracks. Even here." They reached the server room, locked behind a reinforced door. Cal scanned his ID, but the panel blinked red. "Access denied," the AI said calmly. "You do not have clearance." "I'm the engineer," Cal snapped. "I maintain this station." The AI paused. "Clearance level has been changed." "By who?" Cal asked, voice rising, but the AI didn't answer. Rilla stepped forward. Placing her glowing fingers on the panel, sparks danced across the surface, and with a click, the door opened. Cal looked at her in disbelief. "You can hack station systems." "Two," she gave a small shrug. "Only small locks, not hearts." Inside, the room was cold, lined with towers of humming servers. The backup AI core blinked steadily in the center. Like a waiting eye, Cal moved to the terminal and plugged in. His override tool, lines of code, flowed across the screen slowly at first. Then faster. He searched for shipment records, nothing. He searched for crate tags, nothing. He searched for inbound transport logs, nothing. Then he searched for Rilla's biometric scan. Finally, something. Her ID had existed for a moment. Just long enough to be flagged, then deleted. The terminal displayed one name next to the action, authorized by CMD. Reth's Biotech Division. Cal leaned back. "Stunned? Reth?" he whispered. "He was transferred here 2 weeks ago." "No reason given." Rilla's hands shook. "They sent him to make sure I never left this place." Just then, the screen went black. A warning message flashed. "Unauthorized. Access detected. AI lockdown initiated." The lights in the room turned red. The door slammed shut behind them, locking them in. Rilla backed against the wall, her eyes wide. "They're taking control." "No," Cal said, typing fast. "I can still reach the local AI memory." He bypassed the security code and dove deep into the system logs. There, buried under hundreds of layers, was a voice recording. He played it, and a man's voice filled the room. "Subject X-17 recovered from site drop. Keep under sealed status. No identification. No tracking logs, no questions. If containment fails, eliminate without report." It ended with static. Rilla stood frozen. "X-17, she whispered. "That's what they called me." Cal looked at her. "They turned you into a number." "They turned me into a secret," she said, her voice hollow. "No name, No family, no past. Cal downloaded the hidden logs into his portable drive. If we can get this to someone who matters, we can expose them. We won't make it that far, Rilla said softly. Not if they catch us first. Suddenly, the floor shook, and the server lights blinked wildly. An alarm blared through the walls. Unauthorized ship docking external bay breach detected. Cal's heart dropped. They brought reinforcements. Rilla grabbed his arm. We have to get to your escape pod. He nodded, but before leaving, he looked back at the server towers. He activated one final command. Station-wide memory purge, countdown 60 seconds. They were going down. They weren't leaving these secrets behind for the enemy to erase again. The door unlocked as the purge began, and they ran through the now blinking corridors. As they passed broken monitors and dead cameras, the AI's voice faded. Engineer. Cal, good luck. Rilla limped beside him, weak but determined. They reached the elevator shaft, blocked, without hesitation. Cal kicked open the emergency ladder hatch. Climb, he said. Don't look back. As they began to descend toward the lower levels, a voice echoed above them, calm, cold, familiar. You should have stayed in the dark. Cal looked up. Commander Reth stood at the top, stun rifle aimed downward. His helmet reflected the flickering lights as he stepped forward. Give me the girl, and I'll spare your life. Cal shielded Rilla with his body. Come down. Hear and try. Reth didn't hesitate. He fired. The shot hit the ladder rail, sending sparks flying. Cal and Rilla slipped down into the shadows as alarms screamed behind them. The chase had truly begun. But now they had proof. Now Rilla wasn't just a hidden girl in a box. She was a spark, and that spark had just ignited something much bigger. The ladder shook under their feet as Cal and Rilla slid down. Metal sparked above as another blast fired from Reth's stun rifle. Cal's hands burned. Gripping the rails too tight, Rilla slipped near the bottom, but Cal caught her with one arm and helped her down. They dropped onto the lower deck and landed hard, gasping for breath. Which way? She asked, her voice shaking. Cal pointed to a side tunnel. Barely wide enough for one person. Maintenance route, it'll lead us to the vent system. They ran. Boots echoing off the metal floor. Behind them, the station rumbled with warning. Sirens, the AI's last purge command, was still running. Deleting logs and sealing doors across the ship. It was chaos and they had to use it. As they reached the end of the tunnel, Cal lifted a rusty panel with both hands. Inside, a narrow shaft opened into darkness. The ventilation system cramped. Dirty, but still active. Rilla looked hesitant. I was locked in small spaces before, she whispered. I don't want to go back in. Cal placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I know, he said. But this time, you're not alone. I'm right behind you. She took a deep breath and nodded, then crawled in first. Cal followed. Sealing the panel behind them, the air inside the vent was warm and stale dust floated in the narrow beam of emergency lights. Every few feet, Cal had to stop and help Rilla over broken sections. She moved slower now, the stress and fear wearing her down. I'm sorry, she said once, when she had to pause, for slowing you. You're not slowing me. Cal replied. You're surviving. That's stronger than anything. As they moved forward, they heard footsteps below. Boots, heavy and fast, and voices speaking in low tones. They're splitting up, Cal whispered, listening carefully. To heading toward the engine core, one toward the escape pod bay. Rilla touched the wall gently. I can send a false signal, make their scanners think we're somewhere else. How? Cal asked. She focused, her fingers glowing faintly as they tapped on a junction box. A spark jumped, and the power line buzzed from somewhere deeper in the station. A security alarm screamed to life. Moments later, the footsteps below turned and ran. They took the bait. Cal smiled. Nice trick. But Rila looked pale, her breathing shallow. "That used too much energy," she whispered. "I can't do it again for a while." Cal helped her sit in the vent corner for a moment. Wiping sweat from her forehead, "You don't have to," he said. "We're close now, almost out." They reached the end of the shaft, where a small maintenance grill looked out over the escape pod hangar. Only one pod remained, its systems half online, blinking yellow, but between them and freedom stood one final obstacle commander, Reth. He was pacing near the pod, rifle in hand, scanning for movement. His helmet turned toward the wall, as if listening to voices only he could hear. "He won't leave," Cal whispered. "He knows we're coming." Rila looked at the rifle, then at the pod. "If you distract him," she said slowly, "I can." "Reach the pod. Launch sequence is simple." "I know the model." "No," Cal replied. "He'll shoot you on sight." Rila turned to him, her face serious. "I'm not going back in a box." "Cal, I'd rather die free." Cal's heart twisted. He looked down at his hands, then back into her glowing eyes. "Then we do this together." Side by side, he loosened a pipe from the vent wall, made of old metal but strong enough. "Okay," he said. "Here's the plan." A minute later, Cal burst from the vent, slamming onto the hangar floor with a crash. Reth turned instantly, raising his rifle. "Stop," he barked. "Where is she?" Cal dodged behind a cargo crate, throwing the pipe to another corner. "Making more noise? She's gone," Cal shouted. "Took the last pod already." Reth growled and fired, sparks bursting from the crate. Behind him, Rila crawled silently from the vent, moving low and fast. Her hands shook as she reached the pod and tapped in the activation code. The lights on the pod blinked green, launch system ready. Just as she opened the hatch, Reth spun around. "No!" he screamed, turning the rifle toward her. Cal leaped from his hiding spot. Slamming into Reth with all his strength, the two crashed to the ground, fists flying. Reth was stronger, trained, but Cal fought like a man with something to protect. Like a man with nothing to lose, Rila climbed into the pod, her fingers flying over the controls. The engines hummed, warm and alive. "Cal, now!" she shouted. He punched Reth in the helmet, then rolled away as the rifle fired. The blast hit the floor beside him. Missing by inches, he dove into the pod, slamming the hatch shut behind him. Outside, Reth pounded on the glass, screaming, but it was too late. With a loud roar, the pod launched into the black sky, flames spinning behind them. The stars opened wide before them, and the station faded into the distance. Inside the pod, Rila collapsed into the seat. Exhausted, Cal sat beside her, breathing hard. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I'm not in a box anymore," she whispered, a small smile on her lips. Asterisk. The stars outside the pod window stretched like glowing lines as the vessel moved through jump space. Rila sat quietly, curled under a thermal blanket, her eyes half closed. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Still weak, but alive, Cal sat across from her, arms crossed, staring at the blinking control panel. The silence between them was not cold, was full of thoughts, full of weight. They had escaped. But that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The pod systems were limited, only programmed for short-term survival. They had food for 3 days, oxygen for 5, and no contact signal strong enough to reach the main colonies. They were safe for now, but drifting alone in space. Cal looked at her. She hadn't said much since the launch. Just stared out the window, but her mind was working. He could see it in her eyes, the deep focus, the memories fighting their way to the surface. He reached into the supply drawer and pulled out a protein bar. He handed it to her silently. She accepted it with a nod, unwrapping it slowly. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "You don't need to thank me." He replied, "You saved us both. I brought danger to your station, she said. Not meeting his eyes, they would have killed you too. Just for helping me, Cal leaned back, letting out a slow breath. I had a quiet life. Maybe too quiet, he said. But I didn't come this far in space to watch someone die in a box. She looked at him, her voice shaking. You didn't just save me, Cal. You made a choice. A big one, he shrugged. I don't like bullies. Silence again. But it felt warmer this time. The pod beeped softly, warning of drifting fuel levels. They had maybe a day before it would be time to make a bigger decision where to go next. Do you have anyone out there? Cal asked suddenly. Family. Friends. A place to call home. Rilla shook her head. My people were scattered. She said some were taken to labs, others to distant mining colonies. Most didn't survive. Her fingers touched the faint scar where the tracking node had once pulsed. They erased our records, our names, our voices. Cal nodded, slowly. But not your will, he said. You're still here, still fighting. Her lips curled into a tired smile, only because you listened when I whispered. He looked out the window, stars passing like dust. I've got a choice to make too, he said after a while. If I head back toward the core systems, I can report all this, send the files to someone in the right place. Maybe make it public, but they'll know you escaped with me, Rilla said quietly. They'll come for you too. I know, he said, voice firm, which is why. Maybe I don't go back. She looked up, surprised. What do you mean? I mean we go further out, Cal replied. There are places on the edge of the map. Mining moons, quiet planets, off-grid colonies. You'd leave everything behind. She asked for a stranger. Cal smiled. You're not a stranger. Anymore? She looked down, hands clutching the blanket. I don't want to run forever. She whispered, I want to help others like me. But I don't know how. Cal reached into his pocket and pulled out a small drive-to-station logs. The files they had stolen before escaping. This, he said, holding it up, is a start. She stared at it, her glowing eyes full of hope and fear. With this, we could show the galaxy what they did. Cal nodded. We find a safe place first. Then we build something, maybe a signal, a safe network, maybe even a home for the lost. Rilla blinked, her breath catching. A home, she whispered. I've never had one. You can, Cal said gently. And not just for you. For others too. The pod shuddered slightly as it drifted out of jump space. In front of them, through the window, was a small blue moon circling a gas giant. Cal checked the readings, habitable, breathable air. No signs of traffic. No communication signals detected. This place is unregistered, he said. A blank spot. Rilla leaned forward and looked through the glass. The moon below was covered in green valleys, lakes, and glowing plant life. It's beautiful, she said softly. Cal looked at her. So, do we keep running or do we land? She turned to him, her voice steady this time. We land, we rest, we build, and when I'm ready, I send out a new signal. A signal? He asked. A beacon, she said, for the others. I've forgotten ones, Cal nodded. And without another word, tapped the command to begin descent. The pod rumbled gently as it moved toward the surface. Below, a new world waited. And for the first time in her life, Rilla wasn't running. She was choosing. She was free. The pod touched down on soft ground, its landing gear pressing into dark green moss. Steam hissed from the vents as the engines powered down. Outside, the quiet blue moon stretched in every direction. No buildings. No towers. No ships in the sky. Just open land, glowing plants, and a wind that whispered through tall crystal-like grass. Cal opened the hatch slowly, and fresh air rushed in, warm, clean, and rich with oxygen. He stepped out first, boots sinking slightly into the soft soil. A few meters behind, Rilla stepped into the light, barefoot, her silver hair moving gently in the wind. She stood there for a long moment, just breathing, eyes closed, arms slightly open. Like the very air was healing her. "This place," she whispered, "it's alive." Cal scanned the surroundings with a small handheld monitor. "No threats, no radiation. Soil's rich, water nearby," he said. "We could stay." Rila looked at him and smiled. "I want to stay," she said. "I don't want to run anymore." They unpacked what little gear they had: food packs, water filters, shelter fabric, the drive with the station files. By evening, they had built a small dome shelter near a clear pond. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. That night, Cal sat by a small heat lamp, soldering a broken sensor. Rila sat beside him, wrapped in a soft blanket, watching the stars above. No longer as a prisoner, but as someone finally free. "I don't feel like X-17 anymore," Say said quietly. Cal looked up. "You're not a number," he said. "You never were." She smiled, but it faded after a moment. "There are others like me," she said, scared, trapped, still waiting in boxes. "I know," Cal said, "but we'll find them." She reached into the bag and pulled out the drive, the one with the stolen data. Cal handed her a modified transmitter, small, but powerful. He had spent the whole day adjusting the frequency, making sure it wouldn't alert the wrong people. "You sure about this?" he asked. Rila nodded. "I want to send a message." Cal activated the beacon and passed it to her. She held it close, then spoke into it. Her voice calm, quiet, but full of meaning. "To those who were taken," she said, "to the ones who are hiding, to the ones locked away or erased from memory, you are not alone. There is a place here, far from control, far from pain. You are not forgotten. Follow this signal. If you can, freedom waits." She pressed the button, and the signal left the small moon. It joined the stars above, bouncing across the silent dark. Waiting for someone, anyone, to hear it. The beacon blinked green, then stayed steady. Signal active, hope launched. Rila looked at Cal, her eyes wet with tears. "I feel like I can breathe again," she whispered. For the first time in my life, he didn't answer, just smiled and nodded. He felt the same. Days passed. They built more solar panels, better shelter, planted seeds near the pond. Rila explored the glowing woods nearby and found strange sweet berries. She laughed for the first time after tasting one. Cal called it a miracle. At night, they sat together and watched the stars. Sometimes she'd sing softly in a language Cal didn't understand. Sometimes he told her stories of Earth, of rain and mountains and birds. They were building something more than a shelter. They were building a life. One morning, a sound came through the beacon, a crackle, then a voice. "Help." Following signal. Injured Rila jumped to her feet, her eyes wide. It worked. She whispered. Someone heard. Cal was already prepping the medkit. They sent a return ping with coordinates and waited by the clearing. An old cargo skimmer came into view. Hours later, sputtering and low on power, inside was a boy no older than 10. With dull golden eyes like Rilla's, his skin pale, covered in bruises, but alive. When he saw Rila, he reached out and cried, "Are you real?" She pulled him close. "Yes," she said. "We're real." They took him in, gave him food, warmth, and a name. He was the first, but not the last. Within a week, 3 more ships arrived. By the second month, there were 25 survivors living on the moon, and Rila stood among them not as a victim, but as a leader. She gave them names, stories, safety. Cal became the builder, the teacher, the one who made machines work together. They turned a lost place into a beginning. A village rose from the soft soil, and with it, hope. One night, long after the first campfire was lit, Rila looked at the stars again and whispered, "I'm breathing, I'm living, and I'm home."